I created Coral Castle, excuse me. I will be your host on this audio tour of my life and work. Quite a sight, isn't it? You should have been here in '36 when I moved from Florida City. But wait, let me start at the beginning. I was born in Lativa near Riga in 1887. Then, in 1912, Cupid's arrow found its mark.
And down here, let me tell you what's incredible. He built this within a year. All he had was a tripod 35 feet tall on the west side, on that side, and a tripod on the east side. This, we have over 400 letters to testify that Edward Iscano never had any help from any human being, no beast of burden. So the mystery is, how did he do it? Average weight down here of this blocks is 4 to 6 tons. The hoist that you see down here that he could have used can only withstand at least 2 tons. So the mystery is that he is making this block behave much lighter than what they are. So that's the secret he took with him. Incredibly, he would make his own tools. If you look at that, doesn't come along. Probably landing gear from an old trailer. And he used steel cables to move pieces from point A to point B. So you can see a hand crank down here with a connecting rod and a drill to drill holes either in metal or wood. Now this is an amazing presentation in here. What you see down here is the generator. Take a look at it. What he's going to do, he's going to take a 4-cylinder engine block and he's going to attach the crankshaft attached to it once he got anchored that into the concrete. The purpose for the crankshaft is to hold the flywheel which is underneath. That flywheel weighs about 125 pounds. And what you see down here are rows of magnets, rows of 24 rows of those magnets around it. He will secure the magnets with a ring gear and then he'll pack concrete in between to make it stationary. And we also remind you that magnets are polarized, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive subsequently. That means that that is an AC generator. He will work by hand. Contrary to most generators that will work actually with a combustion engine. When it starts down here, the objective is momentum. When it gets it going, it's very easy to maintain that speed for at least 30 minutes to 20 to 30 minutes like that. With a transformer with an iron core down here and a step-up transformer, he was able to produce enough electricity to ignite the incandescent filament of 2 household light bulbs. So this gentleman only went to 4th grade of elementary school, but he will read a lot. On his way to California, he lived in Oregon for a while. He will go to the libraries in New York, in Oregon, in California, in Miami, and Homestead. And he was able to put in practice what he learned. In a little bit, I'm going to show you some amazing things down there. We got a sundial that has been giving us the time for the past 65 years within 35 seconds of accuracy. We do have a telescope that is aligned with the North Star. Anytime you have a clear evening down here, you look through the telescope, the North Star will be on that within the circle, which is amazing, because actually the North Star doesn't work, doesn't move. But in that circle, it will move counterclockwise. You can see the wedge, the lift springs down there below that sign. Those comes from the big trucks. It's about that long. Let me remind you that the spring lifts are high-tempered steel. They are also spring-loaded. So he's going to use that to detach the core out of the quarry. But he'll do it, for example, assuming this is a block of coral, he would take the leaf springs and he would sharpen one end with that contraption that you have down there with the grinding stone. He would butt it against the coral, then he would step on it. With a sledgehammer, he's going to drive it into the coral about 2 or 3 feet deep in that fashion, one next to the other. The next thing he's going to do, once he's got 10 or 12 of those wedges, he's going to place a fulcrum on top, 4 or 5 of those, and from the opposite side, he's going to pry between every 2 wedges up, either from right to left or left to right. He's looking for the weakest point of fracture. Let me tell you that this adventure will take a lot of physical work. Every time he drives one of those wedges into the coral, he's going to be exert a pressure of 1,500 to 2,000 pounds per square inch. Also that each one of those wedges is going to receive an impact of 50 to 60 blows by hand on it like that. And all the blocks you see around here, including the one in this building, were quarried out of the quarry the same way. So you have a man that is 5 feet tall, weighed about 100 pounds. His forearm is twice as wide as mine. But he was very small, yes. Okay. So what's incredible is that it's a lot of physical work down here, and let me tell you one piece that has a lot of extreme work. The telescope, 20 tons, 40,000 pounds, 35 feet in length. In that one, he used 65 to 70 of those wedges. So multiply that 50 times each. It's a lot of physical work, but he was able to do it. And he did it within a time frame that is incredible, within 4 years. 1 year to build this building down here by himself. What did he have? Take a look at on that panel. There's a photograph down there showing you a tripod. And the tripod has that hoist dangling from it. The one that the professor of the engineering department at the University of Miami says that he probably used as a front. I say, no, he's not. He used it. But what's the mystery is the box at the very top of that tripod. He could have something down there that's going to make the block behave much lighter than what the block is. Let me remind you that Ed never talked about anti-gravity or levitation. He's talking about, in his pamphlet, he writes about a magnetic base, magnetic energy, magnetic current, and its perpetual motion holder, which is simply an electromagnet. Remember that two polarized the same will repel. And he talks about that in one of his pamphlets. He said, what if I take a magnet and round magnet, slide it down the tube, and then take another magnet facing the magnet that I put, polarize each other, will go down, and then they will repel. How long will they stay repel? Will be there after 10 years? Actually, the answer is yes, because the magnet's not going to wear out. It's going to repel. That's going to tell you that Edward Iskannin is telling something that he read, but he's not telling you. He's talking about James E. Maxwell's theory of magnets. He doesn't tell you in words. He does mathematical equations. And James E. Maxwell tells you, the Scottish physicist, that when you have two magnets that counteract each other, you're talking about the middle space, which is going to be a void. All he's doing is talking about magnetic levitation. Down here that he knew about mechanical engineer, this is what we call gear reduction 4-to-1. If you see down here, you can go like that. But actually, the gears are not frozen. Is that it's going to require another gear down here and a weight, a counterweight. So he actually used this to do something with it. I assume that if he were able to have another large gear machine down here with an electric motor, he can lift things. So if he were to use that generator, and then by moving that generator, he placed the motor, then when it reached that electricity start turning, then he could create a lot of lift with this. The wheelbarrow is giving you the best lessons in physics. Physics tells you that the closer you place the load to the fulcrum, the easier the light is going to get. And here's the load and here's the fulcrum. Look at the length of those handles in that wheelbarrow. Very long. Look how wide they are for a 5-foot man. That tells you that it's built on the principle of a man walking on a tightrope with this big bomb hanging like that. So that's the same principle. When you lift it up and use this as a sling around his neck. If he's pushing something heavy on there, inertia is going to cause that weight to move forward, so he's not carrying the burden in that way. I'm telling you, the man was very, very smart. If you look at the panel down here that someone placed together once he passed away, you can see that he's got coils around, wrap around bottles, and you can see also radio tuners. Remember, if you don't know about radio, if you know about radio, when those plates go in and out, they induce certain impedance and change the frequency. If he's starting frequency, then he's starting also what we call the multiplier of the same frequency that you find in kilohertz or kilocycles. You can see, you can find that same frequency in megahertz and much higher frequency. So actually, he's studying harmonics. So harmonics and magnetics go in unison because actually that's one of the fields that can create magnetic levitation. So it's possible that Edward scanning was using the same principle. So this work for him is very easy because each block is going to behave very, very light at the way he's doing it. So let me take you upstairs, and upstairs you're going to see probably a reflection of how he lived in Latvia back in the early days when he was a younger person. Let me tell you that upstairs we have two elements, and it's very comfort. Actually, a human being looks for comfort, looks for heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summer. Let me tell you, that place upstairs is one of the best samples of that. I'm going to show them to you. Let's take a look. The pressure of the air or the climate is controlled because you don't feel the air coming through the windows rushing just like in modern houses today. In the summer when we have temperature about 91 plus degrees Fahrenheit and humidity factor of 90%, let me tell you, this place down here is the best place to come in. Temperature 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Right to that threshold, you can feel the heat coming in if you step down here. But here is nice and comfortable. Watch the alignment of the windows. If I were to stand down here, stretch my arm like this, 12 inches farther that way. And if you were to stand align that window with that one, this one is back 6 inches. So you notice the difference, 12-6. Is creating an imbalance, a complete imbalance continues. So regardless how the wind's shifting here, look how wide that wall is on this side and look how narrow it is on that end. But look how wide it is on that end and how narrow it is in that corner. So he's creating a constant imbalance. He will have air circulation all the time. The temperature down here, temperature 91 degrees plus, will be about 78 degrees. Until 3 years ago when they placed that fan. When that was running full speed, the temperature down here reached 86 degrees Fahrenheit. It was breaking the effect because actually it's purging the air out. I was able to slow it down this. I was going to turn it off, but the chain broke off. So now it's stuck at that speed, but I think at that speed I'm going to have at least 82 degrees Fahrenheit in here. Because this is what I to sneak in to stay out of heat in the summer. Winter, you close all the windows, and the window temperatures that I checked from 37 degrees Fahrenheit up to 55 degrees will render this place in here 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So the heat will permeate through the walls in the winter. In the summer it cools off. The center, which is where the molecular structure is going to be, the heat will permeate through the coral. You could have at least 3 or 4 days without sunlight, and you still will have 65 degrees down here as long as the windows and the door will be closed. That is incredible. So he knew exactly what he was doing because look at the height of the ceiling. He used the beams that we call Lake County pine, that is extinct. And what you have down here is like a cracker. If you look at it, don't think it's 15 or 30 felt paper. Because if you go like that, it snaps. So what he did, he placed some boards underneath, and then he poured the concrete on top. You still see the nails that supported that. And then he will pulled them off, and that's how insulated the base of it. The floor at one time used to be tongue and groove board. But then later on, what he did, he poured the concrete in 1948, using the same principle of he poured the ceiling. But in here, instead of using rebars, he used wire mesh. So that's why you see the cracks like this, because of the weight when it goes down against the timber. Now that timber is very hard. So the timber has to be fresh in order to be able to do that, because now it's very hard to drive a nail through it. That's what they call it South Lake County pine. And let me tell you that during Hurricane Andrews in 1992, winds up to 289, almost 300 miles an hour. We only blew the tiles of those houses that were built in the 60s and 20s on the old Redland. So in those days they used nails, they used pegs with a wedge in the middle. And actually the peg would become part of the wood once it dried. So hurricane will not even move it from the foundations. Only blew the roof, and they just put the tiles back on, and that's it. You can see down here a radio table. The pipe. There was another pipe that would slide on it with a wooden table, and a galena crystal radio set on top. You can see the antenna zigzagging through the ceiling. I was told that someone stole the galena crystal. That's why the radio was placed inside in the glass exhibit. When you look at that radio, if you know what one looks like, you're going to be amazed, because this radio's got a three-gang tuner and it's got a coil about that large with 2 windings on it. So if he's using the crystal, the galena crystal detector, if he's not using batteries, he have to string an antenna out there at least 200 feet to get enough energy to activate the galena crystal. But I guess he did it, because when you look at his radio, it's a little more complex. The wash basin, if you go to Europe, you're going to find a wash basin, a chamber with a wash basin and a waste basin. The reason he didn't have a waste basin down here, because he had a latrine that he built attached to the old shack that he built on the other side of the wall when he first came down here. He lived in that shack between 1936 and 1940. In 41 he moved down here. The bed used to have pulleys chain here with pulleys. In the morning when he gets up, he pulled the bed above the window with the nails on. He didn't have there were no rails in here, no electricity. That was installed in 1987. At night he would lower that bed to go to sleep. In other words, he built himself a Murphy bed. Let me tell you what happened that after the hurricane of 1992, National Guardsmen borrowed those pulleys to remove tricks and debris off the road. They never returned those. And that's the reason it's hanging on GI ropes. Also, the mattress pad got mildew. If you've never been in a hurricane, let me give you a warning. What is the first thing to go once you have a hurricane is around? Why do you don't want to be outside? Because the wind is so strong that the vent pipe for your toilet will draw the sewer through there. You didn't know that? That's fact. Just like when you create a vacuum, if you place a pipe like this and you run high air pressure through there, it creates a vacuum. That's exactly what the wind does when it blows over. That's why the mixture of rain, and when the houses get destroyed, this stuff stick on the walls, the sheetrock. And pretty soon, within a week, it's going to be black. And that blackness is because those are spores. And if you go in that area where the wind applies, and that what you inhale if you're not wearing a mask. So you're going to have congested lung for at least a year or so. That was a common thing down here that happens in this part. So mattress bag got mildew, they threw it away. The management didn't have enough sense to have another one made, because it was tailor-made for that. The brass chains in here, you can see where they clip down here, and someone remove them to one of those wire cutters, something like that, snap them and pull them off. Those are gone. So management told maintenance personnel to use plastic bags. Remember in the 40s there were no plastic bags. This is 1992. fill them up with grass and put him inside those burlap sacks to make you the public believe that he slept there. Let me tell you, I consider that to be an insult to his memory. This guy was brilliant. You see a tub to wash his clothes and a life-size photo of Ed, 5 feet tall, and he will always dress that neat. He have 4 of those 3-piece suits that he will always wear. He'll be the best dressed man riding on a bicycle in a weather like this in Florida. That photo was taken in 1944 when he became an American citizen. He was 57 years of age. That is a plow, believe it or not. The swing you see down there. It's been modified, and then he placed 2 ribs on each side. He would take a horse harness, and it will remove the padding and the leather out of that. And with the frame, he'll wrap it up around there to make it the swing. Now, if he would string the chain, the plow pole, from here, when you sit on there, you go up with your legs. So carefully take a look how he drives the chain on the front to maintain that balance. So you can sit on that and the thing's going to be steady. So he was perfectly, he knew all the points of balance and weight. On top is the plow pole. You can hitch 1 or 2 horses in there. And you make it a swing. If you look on the wall, he sculpted a pocket. And he placed cement on it. And at one time, this used to be farther from the wall before they installed this. The rocking chair, he bought it in 1942 in one of the local furniture stores. If you look underneath, he never removed the old straw material from the bottom. He just repaired that on top of it, and he reinforced the legs. He placed the burlap sack because those the wooden turnstile in the back, it caused notches in your back. Actually, they used to build that to massage your back. I guess he didn't like that. That's why he placed the burlap sack on that. The kerosene stove. Many of you have seen some of those, but the one you see now recently, because those are circa 1930. He did repair the tray. He was a stonemason by trade, and in those days they used metal container for the kerosene. The problem with that, by the time you fill it up, you tilt it to place the gooseneck into the receiver, you spill half of it. So in the late 40s, early 50s, they make those out of glass with a check valve. You will have a stem holding a spring inside, and the cap will be against the valve will be against the cap. If you tilt it, you'll have a little seepage, but not like happened in the old days. Once you put it down, the stem will release the spring and will open the valve and release the kerosene through that little thing. Above his pantry, his nephew Harry, the person who inherited this place, found in there cereal, dehydrated beef, smoked herrings, and dry salted cod fish from Norway. On the upper shelf, coffee, sugar, and powdered milk. He will fill the funnel with vinegar to prevent the ants from going down into his sugar. With the screen, he was able to deter rodents and roaches from going into his food, but then the ants will go right to the little holes right into his sugar. I had to ask a friend of mine, Joe Santos, he's an entomologist, why vinegar in the funnel? I told him he could have well used water and drowned the ants. He said, if you use water, the ants will drown and create a bridge, and they still can bypass. What he was doing, he was mimicking formic acid. I didn't even know that ants exude formic acid to communicate themselves. And I said, Joe, but vinegar is not the same thing as formic acid. He said, when they come down with the antenna, they get distracted by feeling the acidity of the vinegar. And they cannot equate it to that acid that they exude. Then they perceive that it's an enemy colony, and they will turn around and leave. And then he make a comment, he said, by God, that guy was brilliant. I never thought about that. And I've been working 10 years in entomology. So, let me tell you that in 1951, Edward developed a case of cancer of the stomach. He was feeling very well. He locked this place, he locked the gate outside. and placed a sign going to the hospital. He would board the bus by the side of the road. The bus took him to Jackson Memorial Hospital. 3 days after he was admitted, he did pass away in his sleep. When they performed the autopsy on him, they found out that he died because he developed stomach cancer. That caused kidney failure and malnutrition. That's the reason he died. His faraway nephew that he had lived in the United States, the only relative, he was a farmer from Michigan, Harris County. He inherited this place. When he got the letter, he was elated. When he got down here, he was very disappointed because this is what he found. Let me tell you where the name of Cora Casstle comes from. In 1950, when they built this road down here, people used this as a landmark. The original name of this place was Rodgate Park because of the 9-ton gate. In 1950, it became the landmark. So people tell you about the tower, just like the one you see in the castles. Pretty soon the people start calling this the Cora Casstle. So that's what changed the name. But this is not coral, this is limestone. The same material the Egyptians used to build the pyramids. Also is, if you find a lot of this block, it has a greenish brownish colors because it's got a lot of iron. And also has carbon because this is actually calcium carbonate, it's not sodium carbonate. So it's not actually coral. A lot of people come down here to see pink, purple, or blue coral, And I tell them, this is actually fossilized, what you call silica, sand. So it's much easier to work with, much lighter. So let me tell you that the weight could also be deceiving. If you think that it weighs 46 tons, that's debatable. Because the inside, some of those blocks will have more porosity than others. So you could even try to get an average by placing 2 or 3 or 4 of those blocks together, because they will be much, much different. So let me show you some other presentations down here. I'm going to take you into, even though the sun is not out, I'm going to explain how the sundial works, because this guy had the knowledge of a geophysicist. Now in February, it's going to move that much from here down here in 28 days. But remember that February every 4 years do have an extra day. It's a leap year, 29 days. That's the reason that marker is that long, because that day, actually, the marker is going to be on it. So this is a self-adjusting sundial. To make up for every 4 years, you don't have to overdo this. You still utilize the same marker. And then 31 days in March is going to move from here to here. Today is the 26th. Look where the marker is. And 4 days later on, it's going to be down here in April. 5 more days. So look how close it's to the end. Now April will start down here, and I guarantee you on the 2nd, 22nd, 21st or 22nd, the shadow is going to be right there at 10 o'clock. It's going to be then at 9 o'clock, 9:30. If you happen to be down here, then you have to say 5, 10, 15 minutes past. Let me see, 9, 9:30, 45 minutes past 9 o'clock. And then here is going to be 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock. That is called a true equinox, the 21st summer solstice, the 21st day of June. Then the shadow is going to start moving, and the 30th is going to be right there. Remember that now we're coming back in retrocession towards the winter solstice. So the earth is still moving around the sun, and that's the movement you have in here. Then it's going to move that much in 31 days in July. It's going to move that much in 31 days in August. It's still 1 o'clock daylight savings time. In September, it's going to merge to this line. Every time that in September the shadow is on it, it will be 1 o'clock daylight savings time. October will start right there. Move that much in 31 days. That would have been daylight savings time. November, we do revert back to Eastern Standard Time. Every time the shadow's on that line, and remember, makes a curve, that would have been 12 o'clock at noon, right on the money. From the first day of December to the 21st, sweeps like that until it gets down here, getting ready for the next cycle. By the 31st day of December, it's going to be right here. And from the first day of January, continue. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December again. So this is not only a sundial, this is also a perpetual calendar. So that's incredible because let me tell you, he's using the movement of the earth around the sun counterclockwise. That's why this goes up and down, because the sun doesn't move. And you see the sun going up and coming down again. It's the whole trajectory of the earth around the sun. Also, you see the movement down here. So this is the earth, and Florida is down here, and the sun is here in the morning. Then when the earth rotates on its axis clockwise, look where the sun went, to the west. But the sun is not moving, it's the earth. So here, when the shadow impacts this, it moves the other way. So the sweep is on the opposite. So he used those two movements to build this sundial, which is incredible. A man with the 4th grade of elementary school. The telescope is huge, 35 feet in length, 20 tons, 40,000 pounds. He's going to have to catapult that thing to go up. He still haven't made the holes that you see on the top because he wants to be aligned with the North Star. Now, he's got a problem. First of all, he's going to have to work his math. At this point of Florida, the North Star is 1.5 degrees to the left from geographic north. So you have to make sure he's still going to do that right. So when you look at that pyramid above that block, that's geographic north. And if you align yourself with that pyramid, look up, the circle slightly to the left. That's the 1.5 degree. But you have to dig a hole inside the coral 10 feet deep, because when he catapulted that thing, now it's 25 feet high. So how did he know the angle, the degree angle, to find that alignment? The azimuth. So on any clear night, if you come down here to serve the North Star, you must move up to the observatory. Right here. If you look through that, there's a little hole that is going to be aligned with it. Take a look through it. I'm going to give you good news and bad news. First, I give you the good news. He's dividing the circle in 4 quadrants. You will never see the North Star right in the middle where the wires intersect. Now, each quadrant is going to be pertinent to a season of the year. Also, it's going to be aligned with solstices and equinoxes. So if you come down here the 21st day of December, the North Star will be on the upper right quadrant between 12 and 1 o'clock on the clock dial. If you would have been here about 4 days ago, the star would have been right on the upper left quadrant between 10 and 11 o'clock. Now it's about 10 o'clock because today is the 26th of March. That is called the early summer equinox. If you would have been down here on the 21st day of June, which is the next season, the next key day, that is the summer solstice. The star will be in the bottom left quadrant between 6 and 7 o'clock. And if you decide to come down here again in September to check the North Star, that is called the early winter equinox, the opposite of spring, the fall. The star will be in the lower right quadrant between 4 and 5 o'clock. And like that, the star will always move counterclockwise. That is incredible because let me tell you, the bad news is that in reality, the star doesn't move at all. The Earth has a 23-degree tip. Because of that, we align with the North Star within 8 degrees. That's what sailors and navigators use it as a navigational tool. But as the Earth rotates around the Sun, the star will always be visible. And that takes about 12 months or 365 days in 1 year, if you want to round up that figure. Also, it's millions of miles around the Sun. But yet he's going to harness that movement, and he did it by simply placing the wall away from the telescope. He's got to have to use a mathematical equation because what happened is that you're going to see all this turmoil happen around the sun in 1 year in a circle that is only 24 inches in diameter. That's the amazing thing. So the man also used to have knowledge of high degree of mathematics to do that. Let me show you the moon fountain here. That was moved from the OPA. The first crescent, what it represents? What it's doing, representing the movement of the moon around the earth. First crescent, full moon, last crescent as the moon goes around the earth every 26.5 days. What's amazing is that each one of those crescent weighs at least 16 tons. And this one weighed 22 tons. So how is he able to place this on his trailer? That Mr. Biggest will just pull the trailer down here loaded with that thing, and then he'll drop it off, and that night Ed, either on the second new moon or full moon, will unload it by himself and place it down here where you see it today. Again, remember that the 400 letter testified that he never had any human help, no Mr. Bird. Ed say, I am the king of my castle and hereby deserve a throne. His throne weighs about 9.5 tons. That's amazing that after 69 years, that thing still rocks. And it doesn't take much effort to do that. It's perfectly balanced. Ed said that if in the future he gets married, he's going to sculpt a rocking chair or a chair for his wife. She don't rock much. And one for one of the children. He also sculpted an ugly chair back here against the wall. It's behind his chair. It will not rock and is very uncomfortable because he sculpted that chair for his future mother-in-law. Agnes Scuff's mother's the one who told her, you're not going to marry Ed because you don't have the money to buy your father's farm. The interest in their family was simply the money that was going to get for the farm, and also not only the money, but the farm that she would inherit. So who did she listen to? Her parents. She didn't marry Ed, she married the other guy. Actually, she stood him up the day of his wedding in church because he was waiting for the other guy to marry him 2 years later. Now, Ed calls that planet Mars, 21 tons. The next one is Saturn with the ice ring, 18 tons average. And then he moved the crescent moon of the east in 1937. That thing weighs 22.5 tons, 45,000 pounds. And that's the one that Bob Biggers said he just brought it down here, unloaded it by himself, and placed it down there. The next one is the crescent moon of Venus. When people ask him, hey Ed, why all these planets on that wall? He would simply tell them, that is my energy wall. That's where the sun rises, that's where the moon rises. So guess what? Right on his energy wall in 1936, he's going to place the 9-ton gate by himself in 5 days. What's incredible about this? That not only that he built it in 5 days, is that it lasted 50 years perfectly balanced. That means that if you would have been down here before 1986, you would have been able to push this gate with your index finger just like pushing the door in your bedroom. Or if you would have been down here, you probably would have seen the little girl that, like I saw in 1971, 3 years of age, pushing that gate with this and walking with it. That was not the case because this froze in 1986. It would not move. It has to be repaired by an engineer. A 20-ton crane. A crane operator and a crew of 5, 2 weeks to repair that door. So ladies and gentlemen, when you go inside the gift shop, look on the walls, and you're going to see sequence of photos when they repair this door. As a matter of fact, there's the headlines of the local newspaper making fun of them. Because we have 400 letters that tell you that Ed never had any beast of burden, no human help. So he placed this door here by himself within 5 days in 1936. When they repaired this door, they found out that it used a slab of rock, flat, and on top placed the bearing of a 1932 Mack-Tuck transmission. On top of that bearing, he placed the hub of a drum that came from an old mill. In the old days, the mill was run by one power source. And you have a drum, and you have two centrifugal clutches within it. That when that thing is turning, will expand and then rotate that drum. And that drum has a gear outside. And that will mesh into another gear to run a second shaft. Because in the old days, one power source will move different pieces of equipment. And that's the drum he used at the bottom. He placed that drum resting on that bearing. And then he placed a shaft in the middle that he threaded the stone with, and then into the capstone. He was smart enough to place a pipe like a bushing within the capstone, because that prevented the shaft from eroding the stone. Otherwise, that door would have been out of alignment within 3 months. It lasted 50 years. So believe it or not, Ed used weight distribution in those bearings. Something that the people didn't use when they repaired this, because since 1986 up now, it's 20 years now, but it has been broken down for about a year ago. So it lasted 19 years. If two of you, two strong adults are able to move this, but this will not move by just pushing your fingers anymore. So it's a pity, you know, that I look for paperwork in the archive. There's no paperwork, so I wanted to check and see if we got 20 years warranty on those. And I guarantee you, even though there was a warranty, they're long gone. So if you, two things you don't want to do: don't buy an insurance on any item you buy, because actually you're wasting money. And if you buy insurance, buy it on your high definition plasma television, because there's no better technician to do that. So the company will respond for that. But by God, if you take something on a long run, 20, 30 years warranty on it, that is just a print, the psychological cell. Don't go that way, because you'll never find those people again. Now, what you see down here was his well. It's got fish now. How did the fish get there? If I tell you that birds, you're right. They stop by the creek to drink water, and then guess what? When they start in the shallow gravel, then that's the favorite place for mama fish to lay their eggs that papa fish will fertilize. They stick to the toes. When they come down here, when the level of water gets, for example, normally it gets, we have a drought now. Actually, it's 2 steps down, lower. But the average is between the second and the first that you see there with the light. And when the birds step down there to drink, they release the eggs. That happened about 3 years ago. So there they are. The largest one at about 3 years of age. We also have a crawfish, as you call it, crawdad. It's got 2 pinches. And when I first saw it, it was that small. Now it's about that long. Orange color. I feel bad for him because he's the only one. But I guess when the fish sleep, you know, he gets nice, he can eat. All this has been dug out from the solid coral quarry. The quarry here goes as deep as 50 feet. Normally the water table of this part of the floor is about 10.5 feet deep, and that's the depth of there. He will find 2 veins of water. He will harness the water on this side down here. This was much larger than that side, 8 feet in diameter. When he went down 10.5 feet deep, he was immersing water up to his chest. He no longer can reach that egress door you see above it. But he was smart enough that he sculpted an opening below the wall. So by the water level is an opening. It is about that wide, it's about that high from the bottom. So he will dive under, come to the stairwell. Place this wheel down here is the door to prevent children going down there, to protect them. He also sculpted that contraption down here with a tree trunk and the root base, all in once. It looks like a horseshoe shape. Well, this line is long, this line is short. But what's creating now is what we call the snap over center action to create momentum. When that thing goes over, the weight, the lower part of the weight, as much as the bucket full of water, is going to do the work for him. So once he gains momentum, it's easy for him to do that. This here for small buckets, he's got another access point down here for larger containers. Once he gains momentum, it's very easy to draw the water from there. If you don't get the smell of rotten eggs, the water doesn't have any sulfur in it and has very little iron. Good drinking water. Use that water for drinking, cooking, washing his clothes, and one more thing. Look where his bathtub is. He will fill this bathtub every day. If you touch the cork, fill it. It's getting hot. Can you imagine in the summer when it's about 91 degrees, this will get about 135 degrees Fahrenheit. That's correct. The interaction between the water in here, the temperature here, is going to, for example, it's about 110 degrees right now. The water will be in here close to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. In the winter, the minimum temperature you can get is 60 degrees. The sun rises by the time the sun is down here 11 o'clock, and it'll be there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This is going to be about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The water would have been at pleasant 72 degrees Fahrenheit. So he sculpted this small because it's related, is the interaction and the amount of water versus the amount of pour here to create certain level of temperature in the water. So he will always take a nice warm bath. That's correct, yes ma'am. Now he's got a drain that he will use a wooden plug. When he finishes taking his bath, he'll remove the wooden plug. The water is going to filter right to the coral. Just in case that it goes back to his drinking well, it's to be suitable for drinking. Remember that if you go to the state of New York, the beer you drank 2 weeks ago, you will be drinking over again in your water tank. Believe it or not, that was his mirror. He used highly polished black slate. I have to chip that corner to see what is very black, because what happened is that every day as the water evaporates, it's going to leave a film of calcium deposit. As that film accumulates throughout the month, it's going to create a shell. That's what looks opaque like that. But I chipped that corner so you know the difference. In the old days, you know, that mirror will reflect his face very clear. And I was told that he used that to shave every day. The presentation you see down here is all symbolism. Let me tell you that Ed never slept on those beds. He had a nice comfortable bed in his shack that he built on the other side. And then when he moved upstairs, he built his Murphy bed, the one you just saw there. Let me tell you that the person who asked him about this was Mr. Glenn Simmons, my friend. Glenn came down, he said, what is this, Glenn? He said, well, when I came down, he was working on that bed because that cord come from here, those two. And he already finished sculpting those two. See, what you got down here, Ed? And he said, Glenn, you know, if Agnes and I would have been married, we would have had 3 children. So he sculpted a bed for the oldest child, a bed for the middle child, sculpted a cradle for the baby that still rocks, and then he sculpted a little chair and a rocking chair for that baby. He sculpted a bed for him and a bed for Agnes next to the baby. He was obsessed. That's the reason he lived his entire life waiting for her. He sculpted this in her memory, thinking that she would come down here someday, but she never did. So he lived as a bachelor, and he did die as a single man. The obelisk, believe it or not, the heaviest piece that he moved down here from the old park. Take a look at that. The inscription you see on it, he's the one who made that. Made in 1928. Believe it or not, that thing was standing at the old park for 11 years. Right now, just like in his bed, embedded 10 feet into the core, is 20 feet tall. At the old park, it stood embedded 10 feet into the core for about 11 years. In 1939, 2 years after he moved the crescent moon of the east, he decided to move this piece. So he's going to pull it out. He's going to lay it down, and then he's going to load it on his trailer. Then he's going to pull it down here. Mr. Biggers will drop the trailer down here, so he wouldn't become suspicious. I told him, Bud, leave it there. I'll take care of it. I see you in 3 days. Actually, he put that up that night, because Bob Biggers knew that that night was the second full moon, and that's how he did it. The third line tells you that he was born in 1887. He was born nearby the city of Riga, which is still Latvia's capital today. If you have relatives in Poland, let me remind you that Riga is north of Poland, in the Baltic states close to Russia. And he was born in a small village called Stamarina Pogasta, the 10th of August of 1887. The line you see on the Latvia EL is because in 1944, at the age of 57, he did Americanize his name from Edward Litzkaninji to Edward Litzkanin, like you read it today. He was 57 years of age, and that's the photo you saw, the life size photo we got.